So I've been taking down the shaft of this middle spoon. On the previous post I showed that the shaft did not deflect as much as the other shafts. It was very stiff and I was getting poor results on it. So I took the whipping off halfway, and I've been using a card scraper and a chair devil. They both work about the same. This one's a little more difficult to hold than the card scraper. The problem with using the scraper is that you might get some valleys here and there. So occasionally I'll come back and I'll stick it into this thing called an archer's rest, and I'm just going to use my block plane and rotate with my left hand and take it down. Now, I guess theoretically I could take more of the whipping off so I can get this plane a little further down. So if you look in some of the old Robert Forgan photos, you'll see a guy doing exactly this. They're holding the shaft with one hand, rotating it, and taking the shaft down using a plane. They're using what looks like more of one of these planes. Let's try that. A Stanley type of plane or a record plane. But to me it seems, actually I got it set pretty aggressively, but this seems a lot nicer to use, the block plane. Getting close. The club's back in the deflecting board, and so you can see the weight here hanging, that's a 5-pound weight. Probably wouldn't go much heavier. But now I'm at the baffing spoon level. Before we had it at this is a middle spoon, so we had it at the middle spoon level. I'm going to try to get it down a little bit more, and then I'll sand it. So I just have this curved little gadget to hold my sandpaper. It's going to help get rid of any high spots. I think I'm where I want to be for now. I guess I can take more off later, but I got it a little bit more flexible than what it was. Middle spoon there. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I'll put a finish on this. I'll show you how I do that. So I've sanded this club down to 220 grit, and I'm going to refinish it, of course. So I like to use a dye, trans tint dye. It's mixed with alcohol. This one's called Vintage Maple, and I'll just use a paper towel, small piece of paper towel, put it in there. Just mix with 190 proof grain alcohol, and it's going to give it kind of this honey amber appearance. That's kind of a good base. You can see here. So we'll get that. So that's done pretty quickly. That alcohol evaporates very quickly. Kind of like when you're using shellac, the alcohol dissolves or evaporates very quickly. So that's step one. Step two, I'm going to use some linseed oil, or actually tung oil in this case, and put that on real quickly. So you got some on there. Ideally, you want to let this kind of dry up after, give it about an overnight usually, but in a rush it works fine. You can actually just coat with the next thing we're going to do. So that's the tung oil. And you don't want to ball these rags up, you want to spread them out, otherwise they can spontaneously combust, believe it or not. Now I use asphaltum. So this is made of gilsonite. You can buy gilsonite powder, mix it with mineral spirits, and some linseed oil, and what's called a Japan dryer to help it dry quicker. Or you can just buy this stuff. It's not so easy to find anymore for some reason. So we'll just use a paper towel for that. This is what gives it that kind of, this trans tint dye gave it an antique finish, but the asphaltum really darkens it. They used pine pitch back in the old days, but as I mentioned in a recent post, they were using asphaltum for Model Ts, Stanley planes, and some other things. You just put a thin coat on here, and this stuff dries really quickly. So I guess you can see the shaft there. So 3-step process. Do you have to use everything? Not necessarily. You can actually probably skip some of them, but I find this gives kind of the best overall appearance. I'll probably give it one more quick coat to darken it. This stuff's really thick. You can thin it with mineral spirits. And if you put too much on there, you can always take it off with, get a rag with very light mineral spirits, and it'll come right off. So the asphaltum is on, and that dries really quickly. And finally, the last step is going to just be, I'm going to take some shellac. Let me show you how that works. So I have shellac here. I'm not going to do it yet. I'm going to wait probably overnight for this to dry out. And I have my little rubber, which I've used for a long time. It's just a t-shirt, 2 pieces, one square piece and another balled up piece on the inside. I have a piece of whipping holding that. Stored in a jar, you can use it over and over again. It won't harden up. And then the shellac here is a 2-pound cut. So a pound cut is the amount of alcohol you mix it with. There are charts online to tell you how to mix the different pound cuts. So that's basically it, and we'll put the whipping back on once the shellac's on, and hopefully we can hit some better shots now.